All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's program. My name is Lisa Versace, and I am the Programs and Engagement Manager at the California Preservation Foundation. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization providing statewide leadership, advocacy, and education to ensure the protection of California's diverse cultural heritage and its historic places. Our work is made possible by the generous support of our members, donors, and sponsors, and in particular, our education sponsor, Wish Janie Elsner. For today's program, we're joined by three members of UCLA's History-Geography Project who are dedicated to supporting history and social science educators through professional development, curriculum design, and community partnership. Our speakers will be further introduced by today's moderator, Sammy Purnell, a member of CPF's Education Committee and an architectural historian and cultural resources planner at Page and Turnbull. If at any time during the program you have questions, please ask them using the Q&A box, which can be found at the bottom of your Zoom window. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sammy.
Thank you, Lisa. So today I have the privilege of introducing four individuals from UCLA's History-Geography Project. Joining us is Danny Diaz, the director of the UCLA History-Geography Project, and he is joined by Amparo Chavez Gonzalez, the lead facilitator and coach, and also Ben Wong, a facilitator and coach also with the UCLA History-Geography Project. So today, these three will be sharing with you the work of UCLA's History Geography Project, as well as all the ways preservationists can both get involved in their work and use their strategies to engage the next generation in their own professions. So with that, I will hand it off to Ben Wong.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad that you can join us today. And I'm just going to start by asking for all of us to please sign in using the QR code right there. And if it's more convenient for you, we can also drop a sign-in link in the chat over there. So I'll give everyone a minute to just settle in with the sign-in. So please go ahead and do that when you get a chance. Thank you so much. And I'm going to start with a quick welcome, and just to get to know all of you and who's in the room, would you please, in the chat, give us your name, where you work, and a place that has meaning to you and why? And it seems like we have a very international audience here with us today. Thank you for joining us and taking the time. We have somebody from Orange, California. We're practically neighbors. I'm really glad to see a wide representation of people from throughout the state of California here. Thank you so much. And we have some more responses here to our prompt about a place that has meaning. I see Union Station there. Again, a really special place in Los Angeles, especially with its architecture. And people talking about some other locations as well. Uh, the chat's going a little bit fast and furious here on my end, but somebody's celebrating Clement Street in San Francisco. I have a special connection there as well, being a native San Franciscan. Thank you.
Oh,
Look at all these neighbors. Yay. Oh, the 1818 market in Fredericksburg. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, the Hollywood Bowl. Yay.
So for a lot of us, places take on meaning. Oh, Wayfarer's Chapel. Oh, that just broke my heart just seeing that and what happened especially with the landslide. Sorry, I was
Oh.
interrupted by that thought. But let me get myself back on track. I appreciate everyone taking the time to respond. Um, but just thinking about place and meaning and why, a lot of it is based on memory or some kind of personal connection. And that's a lot of what we do here with the UCLA History-Geography Project. We try to make history and the past meaningful for students. And with that being said, I do want to talk a little bit about the work that we do. So the UCLA History Geography Project is unique in in the work that we do because we are housed at the School of Education and Information Studies, specifically with Center X, which is a group of practitioners. We are all former teachers here. We are also under the auspices of the State Office of the California History Social Science Project. So we together work on bringing history instruction and collaboration with teachers in order to make the content relevant and empowering for students. And with that being said, it's not just the four of us that are doing the work. We also collaborate with a network of teacher leaders across the Los Angeles area, and we work with these teacher leaders to develop lessons and present during professional developments and at conferences and at our online workshops as well. And in addition to the work with our teacher leaders, we're also supported by our faculty advisor, Kelly Lytle Hernandez. And you can read some of her accolades on the screen right there. But if you haven't had a chance to read her most recent book, Bad Mexicans, it's a terrific read about the transnational nature of the Mexican Revolution, on how the revolution was actually taking place on both sides of the United States and Mexico border. Again, a great read if you get a chance. And again, just a little bit about some of the work that we do within the LA community. We've had partnerships with KCET and their Lost LA television series, and we work on developing curriculum for that. We've also worked with a whole bunch of local school districts as well, including LAUSD, Lawndale Elementary School District, Norwalk La Mirada, and we also do a lot of work with some cultural institutions as well, including the Homestead Museum, La Plaza de Cultura y Artes, and also a couple of county offices of education as well. So with that being said, I'm going to pass the mic over to the rest of the team here to do some introductions, and I'll start with Danny.
Hey, thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. My name is Danny Diaz. As introduced earlier, I'm the director of the UCLA History-Geography Project. I've been working at UCLA in this capacity for about 10 years. And before that, I was a teacher for 13 years. Excited to share the work that we do with you all, and hoping that we have opportunities to be in conversation with you all beyond today.
And I am Amparo Chavez Gonzalez. I'm known as AMPS, and feel free to, call me AMPS. I have been with the project for about 20 years. I'm a former school teacher, 3rd through 12th grade, and I've been a coach with UCLA on and off for 20 years. I'm considered the OG on the team, so I'm very excited to be here and to share with you all the exciting stuff that we try to bring into the classroom that connects to your work. And Ben?
Hi, everyone. So you've heard me talk for a little bit, but let me talk a little bit about myself now. My name is Ben Wong, and I am with the UCLA History Geography Project for, I think, 3 years now. And prior to that, I was a curriculum specialist for 7 years with Charter School Network here in Los Angeles. And prior to that, I was a classroom teacher for 12 years, teaching everything from history and government and economics as well. So yeah, I'm happy to be here and to learn and share with everyone today.
Is this me or Danny?
This is yeah, you.
All right. So what do we do? You're wondering, like, what do these folks do? We do a lot of professional development workshops with teachers to try to really center more local history and making sure that that history, when it's taught, it's not just lecture or note taking, but we try to really make it not only culturally relevant and local, but sort of rigorous and engaging, right? And in order to do that, we do a lot of working with teachers, talking to them about what could make history more important in their classrooms. And part of our model is that we bring in community members, we bring in archivists, historians, preservationists, librarians, even youth activists to come and talk to the teachers so that it's not just whatever they're learning is staying in the past, but it's also connecting to today. And so we do a lot of that work. If we could go on to the next slide. We have some models and some approaches that we use, right? We think about how, now that there's a mandate for ethnic studies, how can we make this more local? How can we make this about looking at place, right? Where you live and celebrating where you live and the people that came before it. And so a lot of it is also thinking about what kind of content does that entail? Next slide. And one of the things that we really, really do and are starting to do a lot more with folks is to make that connection across time by thinking about what are some of the social justice issues in your community? How can young people become change makers in that? So how do we get kids to think about the environmental issues? And you'll see that a little later, or homelessness in their community. How do they think about the lack of green spaces? How do they think about preserving community spots that are really important to them? And what does that mean for them to have that preservation? And so we call that action civics, or, participatory action civics, and getting the kids to reimagine their communities once they've looked around them and said, this needs some work, and I want to be part of changing that and part of that work. Next slide. And so in order to do that, we get kids doing history. We get kids thinking about their community and their place rather than just reading about it. And Danny's going to walk us through an activity to get you to see how we do that.
Yeah, thank you, Amparo. So one of the things that we'd like to do, especially with organizations that like the ones that you all work for, is learn a little bit more about some of these places and some of the research that is done, and turn those into some opportunities for student learning. So in a moment, you're going to see a link in the chat, and that's going to send you to a set of 10 primary source documents. And we're going to ask you just to click on that, have that tab open. Since we do work with teachers and we do professional development, we rarely present. We usually have interactive pieces to the work that we do. And so this is going to be an example of that. So you're going to go ahead and choose one of those sources of the 10 of those primary sources. And we're going to ask you to tell us a little bit about your experience in terms of reading that source through the lens of a strategy that was designed by the History Project. The next slide is going to talk to you about the strategy that we call the 7 C's of critical historical analysis. So we all remember our history, social studies classrooms, the traditional classrooms where teachers lecturing to students and students memorizing that information. But because of the shifts that the state of California has taken in the last 10 years, we're trying to give more primary sources and opportunities for students to discuss and look at sources as evidence, and to look at even their community as a primary source. And so we have this learning strategy called the 7 C's. It's a way of building critical thinking skills in students. It helps to develop historical consciousness. It's an opportunity to have students practice speaking and listening. It's a really big focus of the work that we do, is to have students talk about history and using evidence to support some of the statements that they're making. Opportunity to develop in vocabulary and to develop writing in smaller chunks that lead to longer writing over time. We call this in teaching scaffolding, building students' skill set over the course of a year. So what we're going to ask you to do is to, well, first, actually, just real quick, this is, if you're like an ed nerd like us, just letting you know that we have aligned everything to state standards. And so the strategy that we're doing today is aligned to the reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and even ELD standards from the state of California. These are the Common Core standards for California. In the 7Cs, we ask students to do one of 7 things, sometimes all 7, sometimes a few of these things. And they are also scaffolded in terms of like complexity. So the beginning is checking it out. What do you see in the source? What kinds of things is this making you think about? All the way down to conclusions. What kind of conclusions can you draw from this source or the series of sources that you looked at? So we're going to ask you to focus on the following C's from the 7Cs. And in a second, I'm going to also put another link for you all. And this one is to the 7Cs, unless my colleague just did that. Yeah, okay. So thank you, my colleagues. We don't want to inundate you with the same link. So if you click on that link, that'll open up the 7Cs strategy in another tab for you. I'm just going to take a moment to let you all familiarize yourselves with the sources in the 7Cs. Now you might ask yourself, wow, kids are supposed to answer all these questions with one source? No way. The way that this has been designed is that it's kind of like a modular literacy strategy. And so the teacher can choose a couple of categories and a couple of prompts for students to explore a primary source. This is particularly good if you have students working in groups. They could take certain C's from the 7Cs to analyze a source through, provide a different kind of perspective on it. We're going to ask you to choose either check it out, connect, context, or corroborate. And then select 1 to 2 questions of your choice from those particular 7Cs. And then use that as a frame as you go through the source that you chose to read. Then step 2 is either with the same source or another one, going through and then selecting maybe 1 or 2 from criticality or call to action to analyze your source. And then the final step is just kind of a share out in the group about the thinking that went into this, your experience, and how these questions helped you go a little bit deeper into the analysis process of these sources. So I've asked you all to choose a source or 2, to choose check out, connect, context, or corroborate for your analysis tool for step 1. And then read through your source with those questions in mind. We're not collecting answers. You don't have to write down the answer anywhere unless you want to do it on your notes. But this just might be sort of like an internal conversation that you're having in your mind as you're reading through these sources. Okay, if anybody has any questions, this is a really good chance to maybe type it in the chat. We'll do our best to answer. But again, the purpose is just to show you how we can translate sources, research, scholarship, into resources for students and teachers to have real impact and to really anchor them in their community's history. Okay, that was a teacher pause. We often pause 5 to 10 seconds. We often find that students have questions when you pause. We didn't see any questions in the chat here, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you all. You all can go ahead and start digging into that source and that 7Cs. I'm guessing some of you already have. And we'll check in with you in, I don't know, team, what do we think? 5 minutes?
Yeah, 5, 6 minutes.
Okay, so we'll check in 5 minutes. And if you finish step 1, go ahead and jump into step 2.
Maybe a little bit more. A couple of the sources are long, Danny.
That's right. Source 2 is long. We'll
You
check
made
in
them for
5
adults.
minutes.
You made them for adults. We'll do 7 minutes. We'll come back at 12:26.
Perfect. For the 7C, 7 minutes. See you in 7.
DJ Danny D, we usually have music. We forgot our music today. Sorry, folks.
Yeah, typical, but this is fine. I am just checking in with everybody. It is 12:25. I'm going to give you about 2 more minutes to, again, analyze a source or two. We're asking you to use check it out, connect, next, context, or corroborate for your first step. And your second step, criticality or call to action. All right. Hopefully that 7 minutes was enough time for you to read those sources or that source and do some analysis. I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Ben Wong, who's going to ask you to talk a little bit or share a little bit about what you found in this process.
Yeah, so in the chat, would you please tell us your thinking and how these questions helped you do a more thorough analysis of the source that you got? So if you can please just jot down some of your thoughts on how these questions may have helped you with the readings.
Sure, folks are typing.
Give everyone another couple of seconds. It may be a little bit rusty for a couple of us who haven't been necessarily in the classroom for a while.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So a lot of the work that we do is asking teachers and students to practice the art and craft of being a historian and thinking about specific examples with a more fine-tuned lens on how we can bring that history and make that come alive. And something else to consider here would be how might you want to highlight some of the work that you do within your communities and how we can bring that about into our work with the History Geography Project. So our debrief question here, and you can please feel free to respond in the chat, how might you share your work with educators and community groups to further advance your work and learning about place as central to our lives? So one of the things that I had the privilege of doing was presenting at a school site that was built on the former Mattel office before they moved to El Segundo. And a lot of the teachers were not aware of the history and the sense of place that Barbary was invented where we were standing on 60 years ago before it became a school district office. So that's one of the things that surprised teachers and really drew some of them into the work that we were doing. So thinking about a sense of place and one of those uncovered gems that you think should be featured in. Oh, sorry, I got ahead of myself. I'm seeing people populate the chat with the previous question. That was my mistake. So I'll give everyone a moment before we get back to this debrief. I apologize. Thank you.
Mm. I'm noticing the chat, Ben. I didn't want to interrupt. I think folks started to think about it, right? What are the connections to our work in terms of Paul Williams and Garrett? I'm gonna say his name wrong, Vaughn, right? Um, Getting us to think about who's the author, right? A lot of questions about the positionality of the author and what they were writing and why they were writing this, which I think is great. A lot of young people today don't ask that. They take TikTok, they take Instagram, for granted as truth. And their textbooks, they were taught like the textbook is correct. And so this is great that we're asking these questions about who is this, right? Um, you know, why are we doing this work and what happens? Even I see these thoughts of like, here's my work. Are people going to know that this is my work in the future? How do we make sure that, Paul Williams, but then other folks are also remembered and connected to, right? Um, yeah, about the Paul Williams home, right? Yes. What does it mean to feel accepted? What does it mean to have a position of service, right? It drives me crazy, Jacqueline, that I go to LAX and there's this huge mural of Paul Williams and nobody knows who he is. And I approached a young woman who was Black and I said, "Do you know that who that is?" And she's like, "Nah, I stand here every day." I was like, "He's a Black architect who helped design this, you know, airport." And she was like, "No way." And she looked him up and she was like, "Yo, this is awesome." So there's all these gems around LA and just people just don't know, right? And they don't know the connections to community and history. So yes, I love that, right? What does that mean for us to bring that out and to share it, not only with young people, but with adults, right? Oh, and references to Venice, yeah. Yeah, whose power are we asserting? Who's not, right?
Yeah, those are some really important considerations. Thank you for that, Amps. So now in the chat, if you can take a few minutes to highlight some of the places that you think more people should know about. What are some of these gems within your communities that we should celebrate or that every student should know and learn about in their schools?
We got a whole bunch before, so I'm excited about getting some more. Oh, nice. Yes. We do use the Great Wall, yes. Thank you. Yes, the Loomis home. Every time I go to the Loomis home, I don't get into the tour. I don't know, I have bad luck. Hmm.
These are some places I'm jotting them down to look them up after this webinar.
Yeah, that does the same thing. Yes, I do know about the Tucker House. Yes. I don't know Asilomar. It was designed by a woman too. Nice. I like these. I've
So,
developed a little bit of a geek crush on Paul Williams, so Suicide Bridge. Oh, yeah.
so with all of these places that we're naming, how can we further advance our work and learning about place as central to our lives? I see that we had one response already, but I do want to pick a few more brains here. How do we advance this work and sharing about learning about place?
Yeah. Hmm.
Thank you, Lisa, for that.
Jack London's Wolf. Ah, yeah.
Social media is certainly one of those avenues. Yes, to share our work.
I love Sandra's idea. We got to figure out how to do a like history project, alley conservancy. I don't know. Do we create little videos? Do we do a little podcast? What do we do to get more folks knowing, right? Yeah, right. Places have different significance to different people. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Becca. Yep. That definitely works. Teaching, yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. Ah, thank you. Andrew's comment leads us into our next part, Ben. And I didn't
Yes.
pay Andrew for it. I didn't pay Andrew for it, you know?
We rarely have segues that happen so organically. I appreciate that.
So, speaking of mapping and doing community work around mapping, one of the things that we've been doing is developing this curriculum that we developed in conjunction with UCLA Berkeley and a whole bunch of other folks called freedom mapping. We want to show you freedom mapping so that you could see how we're trying to bring this more into the classroom and developing more pieces. Go ahead, Ben. So this was a collaboration of several subject matter projects. So math, history, science. When your kids are at school and their teachers are missing because they're going to CGI training or other professional development training, it does in fact mean that there might be some of our partners who are working with them on how to use the materials and how to bring them alive into classrooms. Next one. And so this Freedom Magic mapping project worked locally with teachers in Pacoima and then also worked with teachers in the Bay Area. And one of our professional development consultants, who she really did it for free and looked at our Freedom Maps, was Professor Jen Tilton from Redlands. Next slide. What we developed was a 6-unit course for teachers who are now mandated to teach ethnic studies to teach. It was centered on community, really understanding geospatial data, looking at tropes and stereotypes of Pacoima and then their communities in the Bay Area, thinking about how community preserves their culture and heritage, and then how do I, as a young person, reimagine my community? So next. And so we started with identity, and the kids did some thinking about who they were and what did that mean. And this was a unit that teachers developed on their own. Next slide. And so here you start to see kids are developing a sense of who am I? How does the world see me? How do I see myself? Right? And they start to depict it in this picture called My Worldview. Next. Then what we did was to really think about how do we use these public tools such as ArcGIS, CODAP, Esri to have kids see what is going on in their community. And so Pacoima is very much so a part of the valley that has lots of freeways going through it. There's an airport there that has been there for a really long time. And as you can see in this map that we showed the young people, if you can go to the next one, Ben, I think it's there again. Next. There we go. We started to have the kids look at variables about their community, right? And where it is. And you can see where the airport is located and what is the correlation between that. And then go to the next one, Ben. And something like pollution burden, right? And what the kids started to see was that there's a correlation between things such as pollution and poverty, asthma rates, and the pollution burden, which of course to us is should be obvious, but for them, a lot of them, they're young, and so they're like, wait a minute, why does my brother and my cousin and my, older sister all have asthma? And so we started to show them how this geospatial information could help them make sense of it, right? And to ask them, what are the connections? Not only like, oh, right away, this is bad, my community stinks, but what might be some of the historical reasons why this is happening? How did your community develop? And then what is your community doing about this? But what has your community done in the past about it? And how has your community advocated for itself? So there wasn't just like, oh, woe me, look at all these horrible things that happen in urban communities, in particular communities of folks who are underrepresented, usually in history, but this notion that folks in those communities have advocated for themselves and continue to advocate for themselves. And so next. And we did a lot of facilitating of these analysis of maps with young people. What we found was that then kids could start to develop, and this is a Canva zine kind of notion of, here's the data about my community. Here's what I want you to know about why that's causing asthma. And then here's what I think you could do to help yourself and your family to sort of prevent these problems with asthma, right? We need more green spaces in our community. We need to have walkways that are safe, but also where there's trees that help deal with the asthma. We need to have better medical clinics. So kids started to think about what would help their community deal with this problem around asthma, obesity, homelessness, and environmental pollution. Next, Ben. We wanted them to know that their communities have been participants, that they're not just passive, receivers of whatever happens to them. And so we center the community and looking at counter narratives of their community. If you know about Pacoima is the place where Richie Valens grows up. And this is why he's afraid of airplanes, because in Pacoima, there's that airport that not only dumps fuel, a lot of times the planes dump fuel, but then there's a lot of crashes. So again, with young people in the Bay Area, and people in LA, we started looking at examples of community agency, community power, and a lot of the kids also then invested in thinking about oral histories. And we had one group in particular who did conduct some oral histories of people in the community. And so these are some of the links that were there for them. Next, Ben. And then one of the big things was that we wanted the kids to think about community, and you see these vocabulary because these are the words used in ethnic studies. But what it really was, what we did was we asked the kids to think about how art in your community and public art and infrastructures help you remember, right? And think about the community assets that are there. And so we had them think about Pacoima's Mural Mile, which is very much similar to the Great Wall. But Pacoima has been very instrumental in thinking strategically about beautifying their community in order to attract business and in order to attract redevelopment. So they have this smile of murals that really speak to the history of the community, but also to its assets and where they see themselves going. And so the kids analyze their community murals. Next. Right. And here's a mural that we used at a conference recently. This mural is in Boston, right? And so we asked kids and we asked folks who participate with us, what are these murals telling people about your community? And why are they important as you have young people walk past them every day? Next. And then what we started to do was showing the kids how to do some of their, not us, but the teachers started to show the kids how to do their own research and think about what are the issues in your community that you want to see improve? What are the things that your community needs? And how do you do research about that? And how do you think about proposing changes? Next, Ben. And I don't think I need to tell you guys that countermapping is a big thing right now, right? That community folks are, in fact, mapping, thank you, Andrew, their communities from their perspectives, and they're putting things in them that traditional maps may not have. So again, we're getting teachers to think about using geography and charts and data differently from what they're used to doing so that it's more engaging to students, but also promotes that critical thinking and it's rigorous. Next. And you see here some of the analysis tools that we started getting young people to use. Who has power? Who's making this decision, right? About where the water in your community should go? What happens to the airport? Why there are not more grocery stores or a Costco in your community rather than lots of, if you know Pacoima, for a long time in the 80s and 90s, it was known as the porn capital of LA. There were tons of studios there in the warehousing. So community members have really, as along with the murals and reinvestment in the community, have started to shift that narrative about that community, which is really, really important. And so we had kids use these to think about that. Next. We asked them to plan out their story map. Next. And we had them think about, right, who am I in this community? How can I exercise my own agency and power to be able to affect change in my community? Next. And so they started to do what is called freedom dreaming, right? And this is why it's called freedom mapping. It comes from Robin G. Kelly's idea of having a dream and imagining a better future without necessarily getting stuck in what could or could not be, right? But it's embracing that idea of reimagining my community and changing it to a place that will serve not only myself, but others better. Next. And so here we're going to show you in a little bit some of the maps that young people created. One of them was making communities greener. The other one is no place like home. And we asked the kids, yes, the same about Santa Monica, the same about the Inland Empire, right? These are all communities that are interconnected, right? Yes, thank you. Ben, I think we can go into that one. Let's see. Now, I want you to remember that these are ninth graders, and you're going to see what they created. And here they start talking about what is most important. I think this was a young woman. I think she found this map herself. She developed it. And then she developed her own freedom map of what she would like to see in the community. So she pinpoints 3 different places in the community where she would like to see more green spaces. And I do think that part of what she creates or she maps out is part of the airport area and the wash where the river goes through Pacoima. We wanted to show that to you so that you could see really, you know, how much the kids really got into reimagining their communities. We want to open it up to questions now, but I'll give you the link to the Freedom Mapping Project if you want to look at it a little bit more. If you want to put your question. Where does the data come from for the map? This is the maps come from ArcGIS. Because the school's Chromebooks would crash, we actually downloaded the maps for them, but you can create your own story maps on ArcGIS. And so the kids use the story map feature on ArcGIS to create their own maps. We provided a lot of the maps and data. Yes, exactly. I'm a sociologist by nature, and I had to do that block, analysis of a community doing that, right? Yes, exactly. Those legacy businesses and yes. So I've done that. I did that work on a map. That was crazy. Yes. Absolutely. And we had a fourth grade teacher that began to think about that, Danny, but then she didn't finish it. She got stuck. But yes, we did. Any other comments or questions? Some of the roadblocks are the Chromebooks are not able to sustain them directly getting on ArcGIS or Esri in the past and creating their own maps with layers. So that meant that the kids couldn't use maps that have screens that move or create their own layer maps. That's why you don't see as much sophistication there. We've been in touch with Esri, and they're developing some new tools that'll make it easier for the kids to access the maps. The other challenge was that, in particular for ethnic studies, the course is only supposed to be a semester. And as you can see, this is a lot of content for a semester. What we found was that once the kids got a hang of how to use the ArcGIS, they loved it and they were really good and they understood it, right? Because they're digital natives, right? Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Thank you, Jacqueline. Yeah. We've been doing some work with NOMA, the National Organization of Minority Architects in Altadena. And we're recording what community members felt about their home and why it was significant and what they hope to see in Altadena as a community, right? And that goes right to your comment, right? That there's a lot of community spaces that are important. And how do we have communities be able to recognize that and do that work? Just like somebody said, Fenway Park, right? The community got together and stopped Fenway Park from being demolished and taken away. Yes, you can do audio, video, oral histories, all of that, right? Yes, definitely. We're hoping in the future to have the kids be able to do more with it. It's a matter of, at this point, it's a matter of funding, right? How do we find funding to do more of this work? We would love that too, Sandra. We would love to be able to partner with community orgs and other societies, historical societies, to get that going. We have been working with A People's History of the IE, which is a story map. And we're collaborating with them to bring that out to teachers, bring it out to other folks. We just did a conference presentation at the Organization of American Historians. And we got a lot of interest from museums and one or two historical societies who said, we would love to do this with our communities, how do we get this going? And so we did a lot of talking with them as well. We'd love to be able to do this more with other places, right? The People's History of the IE had a little bit of money, but in order to continue to work with them, again, we're putting together little pockets of money here and there to continue that work. I think that it would be really, really important if you think about the work that you've been doing and you think about, are there some documents and sources that I can share with the teacher? Might I be able to get invited, maybe through Zoom, to talk to kids about a community, building or something that we're trying to preserve in their community, right? There are ways for you to get involved with students. There are ways for you to reach out, perhaps to a YMCA, reach out to another community org, and offer to come and talk to kids about the work that you're doing, about the ways that you think about the community, if you have some history about the community. I think all of those are ways that you can get involved. And certainly you can reach out to us. If you shared stuff with us, we'll get it out. We'll use it. As you can see, we had a lot of fun finding that source set. We just were like into it. We got excited about finding those sources and connecting and seeing community context statements. We use those a lot, right? And community planning, community plans. So we share those with teachers and they gobble them up. They love them, as work, as a part of our work.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd also say, on one of the previous calls we'd had AMPS, I think you showed us an example of some letter writing to elected officials that students had done. And I think, as preservationists, especially now with a lot of things going on at the federal level and a lot of funding being cut, we're writing a lot of letters these days. And I think, what I certainly learned is never underestimate someone just because they're under the age of 18. So I think that getting everyone involved, students, youth, have your kid write a letter to the city mayor. I don't know. But anyway, on behalf of myself and the California Preservation Foundation, thank you so much to our speakers from the UCLA History-Geography Project, Ben, Amps, and Danny. It's been a real pleasure listening to you and hearing about the great work that you are doing. Thank you to all of our attendees for joining us today. We certainly hope that everyone enjoyed this program, that you got some good takeaways. I strongly encourage you to reach out to any one of our speakers here today if you're interested in getting involved in the work they're doing or just learning more about how you might be able to do something similar in your own region. We encourage you to leave feedback, suggest future topics. You'll be redirected to a survey link upon closing your Zoom window. Please also check out UCLA History-Geography's website. I believe that they've put it in the chat, and if not, I will just go ahead and drop it in now. I'll also be sharing a follow-up email to everyone that will include a lot of this information as well. Again, a huge thank you to Danny, Amps, and Ben, and I hope to see everyone at a program in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.